All right, welcome to Till Talks with Chris White, where we talk TILs, tumor-infiltrating lymphocytes, and all advanced cell and gene therapies, both with patients and caregivers, along with industry leaders. Let's get going. As a reminder, I am not a medical professional or medical expert. I am only a professional and expert on my story and my experience. If you are needing or seeking medical advice or assistance, please reach out to your care team. All right, and we are rolling. Welcome. Today I have a very special guest. Somebody that I've known for a couple of years now, was introduced to him throughout the advanced cell and gene therapy realm. Father of world famous Emily Whitehead, founder of the Emily Whitehead Foundation, CAR-T recipient, an incredible story. Talked to a lot of different patients that have come on here to help them tell their story and talk about their experience, other doctors and everything. But this would be the first time I'm specifically having somebody on to talk about what it's like about the caregiver experience. So, Tom, I'm not going to go off on too much of a tangent here, but just give us a little 101 on who you are, a little bit about the Emily Whitehead Foundation, and y'all's story over the past decade and a half.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. It's an honor to be on here. I'm Tom Whitehead, the president and co-founder of the Emily Whitehead Foundation, and most importantly, Emily's dad. And my daughter, Emily, was perfectly healthy till she turned 5, and then she was diagnosed with standard risk ALL, and we were devastated, but we were told that it was the garden variety kind of cancer and the most curable kind of pediatric cancer. So we stuck together as a family. Emily's my only child, and that was back in 2010 when she was diagnosed. And then we did standard treatment for about, I think it was around 16 months. And then she relapsed, and we tried to get to a bone marrow transplant. This was all going on at the Hershey Children's Hospital. And then we had gone to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia when she first relapsed. And they were going to do a bone marrow transplant as well. So we tried to stay at Hershey until we got to a point where they said it's time to take Emily home on hospice. And this was March of 2012. So I reached out to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And actually, it was February 29th of 12, and said, I'm not taking my daughter home on hospice. And they said, it's amazing you called today because CAR-T cell trial just opened yesterday. It was the last email we read. So we transferred down her March 1st of 2012 and entered her into a trial as the first child in the world that they tried CAR-T cell therapy on. And she had a really rough time waiting 6 weeks for them to genetically modify her cells with no immune system, in isolation in her hospital room. Then they treated her, and she got the sickest she had ever been. And the treatment ended up putting her into a coma on a ventilator for 14 days. But she survived that and come out of that and woke up on her 7th birthday from that coma 23 days after they put her genetically modified T cells back in her. She was cancer-free and remains that way. It'll be 14 years on May 10th of this year. And 6 months after she got better, we got international media attention when they put her picture on the cover of every major magazine and newspaper, especially the New York Times. And with the international media attention that came with that, that's when patients started calling us, or the parents of patients, trying to look for hope in a trial over hospice. So that's kind of been our mission ever since then, to try to provide hope over hospice and pay it forward. Thankfully, it led to this whole immunotherapy revolution and brought in more funding, I think, which eventually led to the success of the TILs that saved you as well, Chris. So we're very, thankful and blessed and proud of our daughter, and try every day just to help other patients have the same outcome that she's had.
Dude, it's just so amazing every time I hear it, because it's so parallel to my story. But I'm always looking at it from my perspective as it's taken me some time to kind of sit back and try to remember it and view it from my parents' perspective and my siblings' perspective and those that were around me. And dude, it hits me like a ton of bricks to think about everything that would be going through their mind and what they were thinking about at this time. It's intense. And as I read through y'all's book you published, Praying for Emily, there's just so many things that hit like the nail on the head with the multidisciplinary care team that a patient has to have. You got to have that optimistic, positive attitude that was definitely you. And then you also have to have Carrie's role. She was real deep into doing the research and searching for the options, looking back at it now, since it's been so many years, but that it's maybe a little bit easier to talk about. But I imagine it's probably still brings you back to that same moment because that's how I've been able to speak about that with my family. Can you talk about that some?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I talked to Emily about afterward. I said, it'll probably make me cry to talk about what you went through. And we're very thankful that she doesn't remember the pain that she went through. But I said, it's just too important not to talk about it because of the impact it can have on others' lives. And I witnessed other children die in the hospital. Their parents were fighting just as hard as we were. And we made it through that, even though we went through one night in the PICU after they treated her. They told us there was a 1 in 1,000 chance she'd make it through that evening. And so I know how close we were. And they told us afterward they've never seen anyone that sick survive. So to have her now, when you see her, you can't even tell anything happened. But that was one of the things during that time for me, praying real hard and just pretty much saying that if we can get her through this, I'll spend the rest of my life paying it forward and helping others. So that's what I tried to do. But unfortunately, my wife and I can't forget any of it, and it does seem like it just happened yesterday, and it's still very emotional to talk about. It's really too hard for my wife to talk about it anymore, but because we both suffer from some PTSD, which I'm sure you do too. But when you help others and then they have a good outcome, that makes it all worthwhile. Like I said, I'm very thankful every day we still have her and try to make a difference in whatever I can do, whether that's speaking out now on policy that might get more funding, talking to patients. I mean, even when I was with you in San Diego at Advanced Therapy Week, I was getting messages from another patient that might need your treatment. So thankfully I connected, and that's what I do now because I couldn't take all the calls that were coming in. So now we have a team at the Emily Whitehead Foundation that can look into these trials, and very talented team that can help other people find that hope because I'm still working full time on the power lines and it's pretty hard to keep up. But I think you probably agree that when someone reaches out to you that might be looking for the TIL therapy and you can help guide them or share what that experience was like to maybe even calm their nerves before they go into the treatment. It feels pretty good whenever you can make a difference. And when we went into that as patient one, we had no one to talk to. So we talked to another set of parents whose daughter was patient 10, and we started a Facebook group for CAR T parents and caregivers and patients. And now there's over 800 families on that page that can all get access to ask those questions for specific mutations or side effects. And usually someone on that page has some experience with whatever that is because it might not have happened to us when we were there. So we're happy that we can provide those kind of connections and just do whatever we can to help the next patient.
This past ATW that we were at, I was telling somebody the biggest highlight for the entire week was day one. I literally just got to hang out with you person to person and do that. Second day, hung out with another caregiver. The third day, spent my entire afternoon. I was on a mission to help this caregiver who's also in biotherapeutics. She was on my panel, did some speaking, but she's on a mission to help get funding for the trials that she's running through her biotherapeutics company. But it was like, God told me this trip is not about me telling my story and doing that sort of thing, trying to generate business, but to try to help everybody else that's there in what I can. And I literally, back when I was diagnosed, remember specifically dropping down on my knees and praying to God and saying, I will do whatever you ask me to, guide me. And that was literally to be able to pay it forward. And similar to you go to look on the internet or whatever at the time, and there's barely anything there. And I myself also went to go ask my doctors when I was signing consent, can you connect me with somebody that's done this before? And they're like, no, we can't. And that's all I really wanted, was to connect with somebody that has literally done this before, that can talk about it from first person perspective. And I vowed that I don't know how I was going to make it, but it wasn't if, but it was when I was going to make it. I believe that when that happened, that the next person that would go to search whether my disease or the treatment would have plenty of hits that would populate, and there would be way much more to find than there was when I was in that spot.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
absolutely are making a difference. And besides being out there for caretakers and that, just having you there puts a face to where a lot of people behind the scenes that don't get to meet these patients, they get to see how they've affected lives and who they've affected because you might be a number to them. Like Emily was patient 100 on all the files, and then to put a face to that, that's one of my goals to get out there, that maybe somebody who's four channels removed from meeting the patient, that they had something to do with her treatment, and just tell them, you missed a lot of time with your family to make this happen, and it saved my family. So yeah, it's important for them to get to meet you and meet us. And Victoria Gray was there as patient one for sickle cell, and we had little Oakland there who got CAR T cell
Yeah.
therapy, and to have that dinner all together was very special. When I put that on LinkedIn, there was so many reposts and people
It's
commenting.
still going. Like I fully believe post will hit 1,000. Like Ben called it on in the comments, and I was my reply to him is, if you don't ask, you won't receive. And I mean it's still populating. Here we are a couple weeks later, and I was chatting with Betsy. If it wasn't for her hitting the search and finding you, like her son wouldn't be here right now. Didn't y'all did the G-Rex tour this past week with them
Yeah.
out in Philly, right?
Yep. I was on stage with them the other night, and like I say, work on the power lines, drive to Philly for a day, and back on the power lines.
Man on
But
a mission.
it was important, and it was also important for us. Emily's down there at college, but Emily was like, "Please let this be about Bo and Betsy," and she really wants people to focus on, if the next patients don't sign up after the first patient, it'll never become a treatment. And she's happy now for other patients, for the light to shine on them. Uh, she's ready to change the world in other ways and help more patients, more than focus just on her story.
Absolutely. I completely see the day to where advanced cell therapies will be the standard. I can't tell you how annoying it is to me when I talk to somebody and I bring up the word cancer or oncology, and the first thing that still populates in their mind is chemotherapy and radiation, and not.
Surgery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The cell therapies and clinical trials are like, what? And then I have to go into the.
Educate them.
Exactly. In this simple, super simplistic form that it's like, okay, ask about it. And if they don't know, I mean, ask if they could refer to a second or third opinion. These aren't completely out of the box, rare, ancient things. This is the top notch medical treatment that's going on. I met somebody, or I didn't actually meet him in person, but he teaches a class in Philadelphia at St. John's, and it's an intro to cell therapy class. And I believe it's like one of the first of its kind. Most people that usually stumble into a career in cell therapy of some sort, have a biology or a different kind of medical background, and or maybe possibly like an engineering background, because there's so many parts and pieces that go into creating these individual one-time batches and all the specifics and everything. But there's not really like an intro class like you would have straight out of high school or anything like that if you're going into college, that talks about cell therapies and really gives like the 101 education. So it's really always my mission, same as yours, education and awareness, and then how to
Yeah.
help.
I was just going to add, I probably met more than 100 people that said that they got into that because they heard about our story and wanted to be part of this new revolution that's working for cancer and now autoimmune diseases and rare diseases. And I actually just met a guy the other day at the Scale Ready event in Philadelphia, and he said that is actually what made me head into this field. And he has a lot of experience making the cells, and they're actually trying to get it into Mexico now. The Mexican government is deciding right now whether to pay for them. So he had me make a short video, and we sent it to the Minister of Health in Mexico, hoping, because I told him, in the past I've had a video chat with a mom in Mexico who was sobbing because she can't even afford the visa to travel, to let alone get her son into CAR T. And he probably would have benefited from it, but he can't even get close to it, and he didn't make it because of that. So it's been like another passion of ours, is to try to get it more accessible to the places people are hearing about it and then they can't get it. So hopefully that the Mexican government's going to step up and start funding some of this, so some of those patients can get treated as well. And it was amazing to see the team at CHOP go down and Penn and visit with the folks in I think it was in Brazil, and they have some people in South America now can get treated in Brazil. Dr. Grupp has a trial going down there where they're treating some kids in Brazil. So again, more accessibility when you have these treatments. And I think the recent thing we heard was 20% of the patients that qualify for these new advanced therapies are actually getting them. So 80% of people who could qualify are not getting them. That's the way I look at that, and we're going to change
And
that.
that's
We're
horrible.
trying everything we can do to try to change that. But again, from the caretaker perspective, Betsy was on stage with me the other day with her son Bo, and we were. It's hard to talk about it, but Bo loves to go to Philly. It's been fun for him. He doesn't remember
That's
much.
awesome.
He likes to get. He's allowed to get extra desserts while he's there, and that's what Betsy said, and I spoke about it as well. It's still when you have to go to the hospital with your kids to get any kind of check, or Emily has to go to a survivorship clinic. It's still very stressful because you just, even if there's a one chance in 100, you might get bad news. That means that, for the caretakers, a sleepless night or 2 nights before you get there to get those scans and be checked, because your whole life can change with one test.
Yeah, that anxiety is intense. I myself have had over 100 scans just in the last 7 years. I can only imagine how many Emily's had. But once I finished my clinical trial, which had me going to scan every 3 months, now I'm only doing it twice a year. And that to me is more scary than scanning very frequently because that was my normal for so long. Very aggressively monitoring just everything. It's been clean and clear. I have no reason to believe that specific diseases come back. There's always a chance that something else, but that frequent monitoring kind of gave me a peace of mind. And it was always definitely text my parents right afterwards, like, okay, I'm done with it. As soon as it hits the portal,
Yeah.
they want it. Yeah. And it was kind of crazy because I got out of the hospital in January in 2020, and I almost immediately had to go back to work because I was in my mid 30s. I had to still maintain insurance. And I just assumed that I was just going to jump back into where I was before all this had started. I had no clue like what was ahead of me. And I explained to people, I feels like I was definitely in that fight or flight for so long that it's like you're going through a hurricane. I went through the eye of the storm when got my infusion and did my last treatment and hospital stay and all that, but I still had to finish going through the second half of the storm. And even though I had done that and my scans were now scanning clean and clear within the first year and everything, it's like the dust hadn't really settled upon like what had really happened. And it's probably the middle of 2022. It just like hit me like a brick. And I was like, oh my God. It's like I woke up from a coma. And that's when I really started getting into talking about my experience and sharing my story and doing all of that. And I didn't know how I was going to support myself in doing it. And I can't really say I still do, but it is purposeful to me. It's meaningful. I'm passionate about it. And over the last year or so, I can definitely like feel my family is getting a lot more into all the advocacy things I'm doing and sharing my story and going to these different kind of events and just but learning everything that has to go with cell therapies that is literally like a foreign language to somebody that's never heard about it and empowering people to speak up for themselves because if not like they'll just tell you whatever and just assume that you're cool with it. And I believe there's power in numbers. And when I was going through everything, I had all my family with me. So it's like I had my team. I remember watching some of the documentaries from y'all's story. And not only did you have like your immediate family, from what I understand, you still have like some of your brothers and everybody that are pretty close by, but your whole community kind of backing you and helping support. And just that right there in itself just speaks volumes because they're with you, good, bad, or ugly. Like it means a lot.
I mean, I live in Phillipsburg, Pennsylvania, and we're a small town, kind of a suburb of Penn State College over there. But everyone around, several towns around the whole area, really stepped up, and because we posted everything online as it was going on in real time. So people told me later, like, we felt like we got to live that with you, and we just wanted to help. But the only thing I ever asked for from the beginning was, if you pray for Emily, and if you don't, send your positive thoughts. And that turned into, people just started doing fundraising and everything else, which in the end really helped us because there was a lot of bills that needed paid. And I'm very thankful when we got started at the Hershey Medical Center that the Penn State students who just had their dance marathon this past weekend, They raise so much money to help the families with pediatric cancer that are treated at Hershey. And so when we were at Hershey, any medical bill that wasn't paid by our, I had good insurance. Carrie had good insurance, and then we had Medicaid as our secondary insurance. When you in Pennsylvania, when you have a child with cancer, Medicaid kicks in no matter what. And then if there was a bill after that, which there were, then the Penn State students pay that for you. But
That's
again,
huge.
the fundraisers went to pay for the extra food and the staying away and the gas. And that was a 2 hour drive for us to Hershey. And when we got to Philadelphia, then that's a 4 hour drive for us. So that's a lot of hotel stays. The Ronald McDonald House, a lot of times, is
Yeah.
full and you have to go somewhere else. But I mean, that was an amazing place too. When Emily got her actual treatment, we were in the original Ronald McDonald House on Chestnut down in Philly, and that was amazing to be able to stay there. We're still close with Sue Campbell, who runs that, and we've actually we funded a room the one year for people who get CAR T to be able to stay there through our foundation. And again, that's all just part of paying it forward and trying to make a difference and maybe help the next patient or caregiver get through that a little easier than we did.
Did
And some of them, when they reach out and have success, it makes it all worth it.
Absolutely. Before Emily actually was able to get into the CAR T trial, were you able to count how many trips you and Carrie went back and forth
No
from
idea.
home to the hospital? Like, no? Too
Yep,
many
and,
to
I
count?
mean, when you have a Mediport, it's an automatic hospital stay if you get a fever, and it was kind of a running joke that every time there was a Penn State home football game, it seemed like Emily got a fever, and we would end up because the Mount Nittany Medical Center is right beside Beaver Stadium there, we would end up in that ER, and that can be pretty crazy during a Penn State football game with a extra 100,000 people coming in to watch the game.
It's an
So,
intense.
but they were always fantastic, and the first couple times in there was some doctors a little bit afraid of taking care of Emily as a pediatric cancer patient, and then we met Dr. Jim Powell, who is a pediatric oncologist that moved from Hershey up to the State College area, and he helped us get through that entire time. But they were always fantastic. We'd get in there first and then transfer to Hershey, and most of the time we drove it. By the time you can get an ambulance and everything, we could be down there. So, but just everyone helped us get through those toughest times, and it made a huge difference. And we had an oncology nurse in week one, Nurse Carly at Hershey, come in our room and said, "I want you and Carrie to remember to date during this time because most marriages don't make it through pediatric cancer. And then when parents start fighting, the child starts missing appointments and it affects their care." So we were very thankful to have that advice early. And 2 weeks into her treatment, she got leg infections and almost lost her legs. And then she was in the intensive care unit, and we never split up as a family after that. So that was the first appointment we were going to split up. Carrie tried to go to work, and after that, the three of us said, "We don't care if we lose our jobs. We're all going to stick together
We're
through this."
staying
So that
together.
over those 2 years, we stayed together. And I'm still very thankful. I worked for a lineman on the trouble truck, first responder to down power lines for Peneleka First Energy. And my wife works in research at Penn State as a project manager. And both First Energy and Penn State allowed other workers to donate vacation time to us so we could be at the hospital
It's
when all of our
awesome.
time ran out and still get paid. And I never missed a 40-hour paycheck.
Wow.
Unfortunately, Carrie used up her time and had to go part-time for a while, and then they took away her she won't have now health care in retirement. She
Oh
lost
my
that. We didn't
gosh.
realize when she went part-time that that would go away. But still, people at Penn State, for as long as they allowed them to, donated some time to her. It got us through that time, and it was really expensive to go through pediatric cancer, but I had the mindset that if you can fix my daughter, you can have every material thing that we have.
Yeah.
And the people
Like,
around here made sure that didn't happen by donating to us.
wow. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I had both of my parents, my siblings, everybody kind of took turns, but I had to count it one time for one of the talks that I was doing. But prior to me actually going to Colorado to do my trial for Till, I was going from Dallas, Texas down to Houston, Texas, which is give or take about a 4 hour drive if you don't hit any kind of peak traffic times. But door to door, it's about the same in whether you fly or drive, but they're overnight stays, meals, gas, like it all adds up. And it was between follow ups, radiation treatments, surgery, whatever it was. And then, but it was 19 times in a little bit less than a year. And I was working as much as I could, but all my family, they also had to take off, and there wasn't really a support system in place. And if there was, we didn't know about it. I was very big about not trying to be super public about it. I kind of had this, I'm going to just be super optimistically positive, and I didn't want to feel like the pity party as the patient. I thought that if I set the tone that no matter what, we're going to get through this, and I will survive. Like, there is a cure, and whatever the chances, I'm going to find it. And if I set that tone, they would follow. And when I remember my brother specifically was asking to create like a GoFundMe, and I was too prideful to say yes. I was like, no, donate it to this. And I had no clue like what the aftermath mentally, physically, financially like was going to be on myself or anybody else around me. And I wasn't very public about it. My family created a private group to kind of keep updates with people, but we weren't talking about it. So when people do reach out to me and they're newly diagnosed, or I'm able to connect with them, if they're reaching out to me, that means they're coming a little bit more out of their comfort zone than I initially was. And that's one of the things I bring up is, don't be too proud to ask for help, because my crystal ball only works as well as yours. And none of us can see that far into the future. So it's better to have it and not need it than the opposite. And if you don't ask, you won't receive. But those kind of, they're out there, but you got to be willing and wanting to ask for them. And so that's huge to hear that you had your community of everybody around, but people that were able to donate their PTO, so you weren't having to do that. I mean,
Yeah, I
I,
didn't even know that
I mean,
program existed whenever Emily
wow,
got sick, and they told me about it. And then we have more than 10,000 employees, and they said any employee at any one of our companies in 4 or 5 states can donate some vacation time so you can get paid while you're at the hospital with Emily. And it really made a huge difference. And the doctors told us afterward, if you two weren't available to make real-time decisions when we needed them, Emily wouldn't be here. And I've actually do keynote talks now about our story really all over the world. And I've had companies start that program after I shared it with them about how much it helped us, and said, we're going to pay the vacation time anyway. If someone wants to donate some to somebody else that's having a catastrophic diagnosis in their family, that we're going to start that program too. And again, the nurse came in week 1 when we're in Hershey, newly diagnosed with a child with cancer, and said that. She said, listen, not very many people can afford what's coming your way. When people offer to help you, take it. Don't be too proud. And that was great advice. I mean, the nurses we had throughout that time were like family to us. And then the Penn State students, when you become part of the dance marathon, and when your child benefits from that, they'll partner a group with you at Penn State. And we were partnered with the Public Relations Student Society of America. And some of those people that would come and visit Emily at the house are still like family to us. They came, you imagine, like I thought, when I was their age in college, I wasn't out visiting kids with cancer. And that's what they made like their mission as part of it. Penn State is to help those kids. Like I said, some of them are still like family to us, and we get invited to their weddings. And I think to
wow.
me that helped us more than the actual medical bills that they helped pay, because we did have good insurance, but the connections we made there just were lifelong.
That's just awesome that you're, still able to stay connected to all of the nurses. I mean, I go back through some of my records and look throughout some of the names. There's my, little placard that says, I completed the till. And when I have gone back to the BMT unit to ask if they're still there, I mean, like, they're either not there that day or they had moved on to somewhere else. But I'm still on a mission to try to track down all of them, you know, give them a hug, say thank you. The nurses throughout all the different organizations that I had to be seen at, like, made the world a difference. And especially to my parents, because we got more FaceTime with the nurses than we did with anybody else. They were
And they'll
doctors,
actually come
they're
in the
in and
room and
out.
tell you what I realize is they'll come in the room and tell you stuff the doctors won't say.
Yeah.
They'll just be upfront with you because they're spending so much time with you. And again, this scale ready event I was just at this past week, somebody who I haven't seen since the day Emily got her T cells. She came up to me and said, I was one of your nurses that day. I just didn't want to be on film. So I stayed out in front of the camera because we let a film crew film it.
Yeah.
And she said, but I wanted you to know that I was there. Nurse Colleen has long black hair, and she was in the Fire with Fire video with us, and she was in the room. She was the only nurse that day that agreed to be on camera, but there was several there helping us, and she just said I was one of the ones there in the background, and I thanked her again. But it
And that's
happens a lot. a lot.
It's what, like 14 years ago almost or something like that? Is it?
Yeah, it'll be 14
This year will be
years.
14 years, right?
Well, it was April 17th of 12 when she got her first T cell. So this April
Okay.
would be 14 years. So it's coming up. Yeah, 14 years ago. Yeah, it's
That's just
incredible. And like I
that's
said, when things got bad in the PICU, it seems to me like that was yesterday. I can still remember looking at the monitor and seeing her blood pressure was 53 over 29.
my wow. And
Now
that's
she's going to
nuts.
be
Think about
21 in May, 21 on May 2nd. She'll be 14 years cancer free on May 10th. And a junior on an academic scholarship at the University of Pennsylvania where they saved her.
that's incredible. I have a niece that's gonna turn 21 this July, and
Yeah.
just every time I think of Emily, I think of Riley because same age group and everything. And I was Uncle Chris, never the parent, just to think about it. Now that's what I'm like real concentrated on is connecting with like other caregivers and whether you're an adult patient like myself or you're a young child pediatric, but what are the resources that you would want or you would need? I mean, you had spoken about Emily's very focused on recently or about the mental health aspect of it. Like I remember just briefly being approached like, hey, do you want to see somebody? But there wasn't really a lot of follow up on that. Like,
And there
is
needs
that
to be more of that. Yeah, for sure. We're helping fund research, at Children's Hospital Philadelphia to actually see the changes that happen in the brain when you get one of these genetically modified treatments to help understand maybe more of those changes, but also make sure these patients realize that it's okay to ask for, uh, but like you said, you're in the middle of a hurricane, and now it's just the way society is. As soon as you say, I'm in remission after that, they're like, well, you're good. Go back to work next week, and you're not okay. Yeah. And I
no,
realized that we helped an adult patient who the first time I talked to her, she had 3 weeks to live, and she was actually shopping for coffins for herself. And then we helped her get into the CAR T cells at Penn in Philadelphia. It came from San Francisco. And then she went from that to now you're in remission a month after she got her T cells back. And, 5 months later, she overdosed on pills because she said, thankfully she made it through that. But she said, it's harder for me to think about going out and getting a job and going back to a normal life. She said, it's easier for me to think tomorrow I have chemotherapy or I have a bone marrow aspirate. That's my life for the last 8 years.
that's the normal.
And
Like
now
when you're doing it
now
for
I'm
so
better
long.
and everyone just thinks, "Go be normal and get a job and support yourself," and when she said, Mentally, I can't do that yet."
Yeah.
So and Emily had severe nightmares when she first came home from her PICU stay. When she got better, she had an amazing, social worker that worked with her to get past that, and then eventually she's like, "For no reason, I'm just up all night." And she got a therapist and started talking to a therapist, even over virtual talks, and, it's made a huge difference in her life, and she wants to make sure teenagers don't they think people call me crazy if I need a therapist or whatever, and we're
Even
trying to get
adults.
rid of yeah, we're trying to get rid of that stigma and say, that's as important as finding the right medicine you need when you have cancer. You have to find the right doctor that can help you with the mental part of it to get past that. But it's just things you learn when you go through that. When Emily first started taking chemo in the beginning, as soon as you say, "Oh yeah," after the first month she's in remission, people think you're okay. They don't realize no, you're
No.
in the hurricane and you're still getting chemotherapy and horrific side effects and trips to the ER and just you don't know what's coming every day. You just try to survive each day, and that's another thing I try to explain to people that you know don't ask somebody. A lot of people would say, if you ever need anything, just let me know. And in reality, that means as long as it doesn't interfere with my normal life. But the people that helped us most are the ones that just did something and then told us. I had a neighbor that was shoveling snow out of our driveway because she knew we were coming home, or neighbor cut my grass and just say, "Hey, I cut your grass today. I saw it was getting high." And you didn't have to ask. They just, every time
Just
we'd go to the
went ahead and did
hospital,
it.
when we would get discharged, my mother would cook a meal for us and my parents would drop it off. And just to have a hot meal when you get home, that's the kind of stuff you remember that really helps. You're coming home from the hospital,
Yeah.
there's probably nothing in the refrigerator anyway, and someone would cook a meal for you. And it kind of caught on, and people would send Emily books to the hospital. They started like a book club every day she'd get another book in the mail because she loves to read. Little things like that. We didn't have to ask for any of that. It just happened. And that's what I
All
try to
about
tell
being
people.
proactive.
Yeah,
That's so important, be able to, just feel what it is that, the person on the other end is going through. I mean, like, be able to put yourself in their shoes. I mean, it's easier said than done. I mean, it means the world. If there was any sort of program in place to where, I like literally had to go back to work 3 months after I just got out of the hospital right before I was supposed to be going into hospice. I would have taken an additional 3 plus months to both physically and, like, mentally, like, recover. Like, looking at it now, like, there's no way I was ready to go back, but I didn't feel like I had a choice. If I didn't go back, I was gonna have to cover my insurance, and the numbers didn't make sense. There was no program in place for me to continue physically and mentally rehabilitate myself. And then also, I was on palliative pain meds. And by the time I actually knew like 100% that I was clean and clear, that's when I was proactively like, okay, like, let's reduce this. And the people that put me on them told me that if I made it through, that they would, if I was addicted, they could have something in place to help me unaddict me. And when I went to go ask them about it, they just said, "Chris, we didn't think where you're going to live. We didn't have a plan for you. You go to the C center and get an evaluation." And I was like, "Yo, I thought you were going to put me up in some cushy rehab or something." Like, it was deflating because I was doing what the multidisciplinary oncology care team was telling me to do. And if you can't get to the doctor, they can't help you. But I was stage 4 metastatic and in major pain and still had to work and maintain insurance. And so I was
brutal.
openly doing it. And then afterwards, I get out of the hospital and got to go back to work because I'm a new home construction manager at the time. And things were booming, but COVID hit. And I remember even asking initially, right when I was going back to work, I was having all this anxiety and I would go see a therapist. You couldn't see a therapist in person. And like, the difference between doing in-person therapy and doing it virtually is like night and day. I can always feel a vibe of being able to connect with somebody in person and the trust factor. But this was 2020. There just wasn't programs in place. And if there was, I didn't really know about them, both financially to help me out to where I could have covered my insurance for as long as I needed to until I was physically and, mentally ready to go back to work. I was still trying to get my eyesight back in check. I had cataracts from all the uveitis that was due to all the treatments that didn't work prior to doing till, and just all these side effects coming at me from every angle. And this was what I was saying, like, it took me a couple of years till I actually like woke up from this coma. And that I just wish that there was programs in place or resources, and if there was, I didn't know about them. And but now, there's definitely more people talking about it. I don't know if I've told you this, but I had no clue who you or Emily or the Emily Whitehead Foundation was until the end of 2023, when somebody from the Blood Centers of America reached out to me and I started talking to them. And they're the first people that brought up who y'all were. And that's how I ended up discovering y'all. But I was
Wow.
like, oh my God, so many parallels. And I just love what y'all are doing with your foundation, the Believe bundles. I was talking to Adam recently about doing a fundraiser here in Dallas. Put some bundles together, probably to deliver like in August to one of the children's hospital. But there's also one approved treatment center here in Dallas in the Metroplex for TIL. And I'd like to put something together to
Yeah, for
do
those
Believe bundles
patients.
for people that are doing till. Can you talk a little bit about how y'all came about the Believe bundles and some of that stuff that y'all are providing and doing now at the foundation?
Yeah, I mean, when we would sometimes go to the ERs or, go get admitted, sometimes there was other foundations that delivered boxes or stuff for like the kids to do. I remember the Jared box, they were always very helpful. And we just saw a need for stuff people need when they get to the hospital. And we didn't want to just do what everyone else is doing. We wanted to say, hey, you are a patient, like you're a TIL patient. What did you need when you get to the ER? And we like you guide what we put in that Believe bundle. And each one we deliver is a bag that we have teams actually decorate the bag and write positive messages on them, and then fill those bags with stuff you're going to need when you get to the hospital. And we talked to Victoria Gray and we said, okay, what do sickle cell patients need? And I don't think people realize, but if an African American woman or girl goes to the hospital, they never have the right brush or comb that we need. And So we're like, "Will you tell us what we need in that, and we'll find a sponsor and put them together." And they actually got to deliver those in Boston, and she showed up to deliver them and meet some of the
That's
patients. And
incredible.
it was just an idea of I remember being in the Mount Nittany Medical Center one night, and would take a long time, say, for a room to open at Hershey before they would transfer us. She gets a fever, she has a Metaport, they would start the IV antibiotics. We're in the ER so long that I had to lay flat on the floor and I'm asleep on the floor. And it was kind of embarrassing. I woke up when a nurse was stepping over me to check Emily. So I was like, I think something that I always like, I have Crohn's disease and now I have skin cancer myself. But when I'm in the hospital, when I've had a part of my colon removed 3 different times, I always enjoyed having a nice fleece blanket, extra blanket in there. So we put a fleece blanket in
100%.
there, and the kids like squishmallows. So for the kids, we had a squishmallow, but then for me as a caretaker, as a parent, I would have used that squishmallow as a pillow to lay on the floor and use that fleece blanket to cover myself to sleep because they would usually give Emily good medicines to handle her pain and start the IV antibiotics. And so she's out cold, and then you're just stuck in this room waiting for a transfer or waiting. And sometimes there was a chair for one person, but we would both be there. And I just remember being really uncomfortable, but I was so tired I couldn't stay awake. And, a hospital floor isn't the best place to avoid germs, but I laid flat out and I was out cold on the floor when the nurse was stepping over me. And so it's just filling it with stuff that might help the child keep their attention to give them something to do, but actually have functional stuff in there that the child or the parents or even adult patients might need when they get there. So, and we just did it as kind of a idea to see how it goes. And now this past year, we delivered them at 23 different hospitals. The Believe bundles have just become very popular, and we're very proud to be a part of that. We just did some at the Scale Ready event, and then our team delivered them at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia the next day. I had to come home, and Emily actually came home with me for the weekend. So, but yeah, we're just trying to do whatever we can to continue to make a difference. This program is growing. Our gala is going to be every September now in Philadelphia. We call it the Believe Ball. It's at the Crystal Tea Room this year on September 25th. 2026. We bring people from the industry in and then patients, and they get to put faces to who they're helping. And that's not just pediatric patients. Like you say, love to have you there. And Victoria Gray comes, and there's a lot of
Absolutely.
people that make the adult treatments that show up at our event. So that's another thing that's very inspiring, but also a good fundraiser for us so we can make a bigger impact on the next patients. And again, we have
100%.
our documentaries of Medicine and Miracles. It's still available on Amazon and Apple. You can order it right from home. And then to inspire middle schoolers to want to get into the STEM field, we participated in a film called Superhuman Body World of Medical Marvels. And you can find it where that's playing at superhumanbodyfilm.com. That was in IMAX right now. It should be out on, I believe, the streaming services are bidding on it now. And they have funding to take it around to middle schools all over the country to show it at schools. So students might get that interest and say, hey, I want to be a part of this
That's
revolution that's saving lives. It's to spark interest in middle schoolers. So they want to, find maybe a high school that has a science program or something, or the training, like you said, these classes you can take in college. And we're very proud too that anybody now in college that takes microbiology usually has Emily's picture in the book. So back when they asked permission to add her when they're explaining these new cell therapies, she agreed to use a picture as long as they put a picture of her dog in there. She was holding her dog and she wanted that picture. So if you see her in a microbiology book,
yeah.
it's a picture from a long time ago. Everything we do is just to try to help get more funding for this revolution, get more people interested in it, and save more lives, just like it did our family. It saved our entire family.
100% for the future generations. If they hear the word oncology or cancer, I want their first thought to be to ask about advanced cell therapies and chemo, surgery, radiation. Those are some backup band-aids, but an advanced cell therapy that is definitely same goal.
And it works. There's much less side effects for sure.
Preserves quality of life along with quantity. And I mean, these are known to be one-time curative treatments. I remember hearing you say it. You don't refer to Emily as in remission. You've said this for a very long time. You refer to her as cured. And that's how I look at my cancer experience. It hasn't been years since I walked out of the hospital. It's been about 6, but I'm very intentional. If anybody ever does a story or anything on me, to use the word cure and not remission.
Yeah, we did
So
22 months of failed standard treatment. We'll get her in remission and then relapse, get her in remission and relapse. And then when she got her genetically modified CAR T cells back, she was completely cancer free in 23 days. Now, 14 years
incredible, dude.
later, coming up. So
Dude, that's just
that's
awesome. I
that's
mean,
all you need to hear. And we're hoping in
yeah,
the future that standard risk acute lymphoblastic leukemia in children will go straight to CAR T cell therapy, be outpatient treatment, and be done in a month and never have to experience the side effects of chemotherapy. That's our goal.
and it will be reached. I 100% believe it. That was
Yep.
my motto when we were going through it, and that was another thing that ran parallel. Once I met you, I was like, oh my god. I also wanted to highlight the foundation and your webpage. Your mission statement now is geared towards all patients of all ages, but the advancement of all advanced cell therapies. I believe is definitely one of the first to receive its FDA approval, and this was back in what 2017
17.
when it's got its first approval, and now there's, I mean, almost a, I don't know, there's almost like 10 different CAR Ts, just CAR Ts. Not, we're not talking about CRISPR or TIL or anything else, but there's
Yeah,
almost
it's
about 10 of those
amazing.
that are approved, right?
Amazing the lives. I know more than 50,000 patients in more than 70 countries have found hope in a trial instead of going to hospice.
And are they approved in other countries?
Yeah, I mean, in Europe, they're
That's right.
approved, but again, just recently I found out, say, in Japan, Kymriah is approved, which is the medicine Emily got started, but they cap what you can charge for it, so they don't promote it a lot because their government healthcare doesn't really want to pay for it, but it should be accessible, when these patients need it. But anyway, we're going to keep trying to change that and bring the cost down and bring the time down it takes to make the cells, and they're down to like 1 week now, vein to vein, when it was 6 weeks when Emily did it, and a lot of
It's
patients
huge.
didn't make it the 6 weeks when it
That's
first came out.
time is everything. Like
Yeah,
within that time frame, why they're growing the cells and you're waiting, patient could be progressing, and too many stories of people that exact same outcome. I could do this all day with you, my man. Definitely have to pick another one. But thank you again for coming on today and just giving me your authentic, organic, open thoughts and sharing them. It means the world to me. And thank you so much for what y'all are doing.
absolutely. And thanks for making a difference. I mean, it could have been easy for you to say, I've had enough of this and walk away, but what you're doing is going to lead to many more patients finding out about TILs and
Hope so.
finding hope over hospice. So it's been an honor to be on here, and I look forward to seeing you again in person soon.
Absolutely, my man. To everybody, sending love. Peace. All right, that concludes today's episode of Till Talks with Chris White as we talk TILs, tumor-infiltrating lymphocytes, and all advanced cell and gene therapies. As a reminder, I am not a medical professional or medical expert. I am only a professional and expert on my story and my experience. If you are needing or seeking medical advice or assistance, please reach out to your care team. I'd like to thank my guest today for joining me on Till Talks. To our listeners who have not yet done so already, please follow, comment, subscribe, share, and smash that like button. For more information about Till Talks and related resources, please visit www.tilltalks.com. I'm Chris White. As always, sending love to everybody. Peace.